Welcome to the Breakthrough Podcast with your host, Reba Hobbs, a podcast motivated to help survivors of trauma to heal and focus on their full potential.
Welcome back to another episode of the Breakthrough Podcast. And I am your host, Reba. And today is our last episode of the year. Yes, guys, it's the last episode of 2022. I am so happy for 2023 and what God is doing in my life and also in yours. Some things are going to change around on the podcast next year. We're going to have some new things. And I am so excited to actually end this year, but I'm excited because things has happened through this year that I could talk about next year, and I also excited for this being the last time. Well, this won't probably be the last time I say the word elevation, but this is the last time we talk about the word elevation and how we're elevating. The word of the year was elevation and how we elevated to the next level. So I hope by you listening to this podcast through this whole entire year at one time or another, you felt like you was elevating, you felt like you was having another breakthrough, because that's what this is about. Next year, we're going to another height. So remember, next year's word of the year is manifestation. It could change. I promise you, the Holy Spirit comes to talk to me, and if something's not right in my spirit, it could change. But I just wanted to leave it there because I'm so excited. This is the last episode of the year. We will be back January 2nd, which is that Monday. Yes, we'll be back. I was just taking a week off, January 2nd, for the new episodes. And I have so much planned and so much that I'm excited about to do on this podcast. I'm also going into a new business endeavor. We'll talk about that. It's a lot of things we're going to talk about. So, hey, we're just going to get right into it. I hope that this new year and this new, first of all, this holiday season brings you happiness and joy. For some people that don't celebrate the holiday, just love on yourself, love on people around you. And those who celebrate the holiday, never forget that tomorrow is not promised to no one, anyone. We can live today and God could take us home tomorrow. I always believe that. So take every step, every chance that you can to love on someone. I hope that by this next year, everything that you want and that you elevated to, that now that you're elevating and you're going to the next level, that the manifestations of whatever that you wanted through the year happens, guys. So I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited about that. And we're just going to get right into the episode. So this episode, I promise you, it always pivots. So being a content creator, and I wouldn't name myself a content creator, but basically I am, because I have a podcast. You could have a lot of pivoting when you already have planned episodes and everything. That happened to me a lot of times this year. I talked about something and I had planned on something, and it probably in the podcast it changed, or right before I was about to do the podcast it changes. Well, we're ending this one talking about, and a dedication to Twitch boss suicide. Most people, if you listen to my podcast or you're watching TV, you know about Twitch. Twitch was the um, acclaimed DJ that committed suicide. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and I know it's probably like a not happy last episode, but it's needed. It's something that's needed. And if I'm going to do anything on my platform and this platform, I'm going to do it where I have impact more than just tingling your heart or your senses. It has to be talked about. So those who want to talk about it and listen, the great thing about podcasts, episodes last forever. You come back and you can replay it when you're ready. And if you're ready to listen to it, you're just going to dive right into it. The first thing I want to start with is that let's take the limits off of what suicide and depression looks like. because there is a fact that you can be depressed, but you don't have to be suicidal. I experienced both, and this is a personal story of mine. And this is a personal story of mine, but I experienced both. And at one point in time or another, I also talked to you guys about the seasonal depression that I go through between the in the months of November to February, and how they're up and down because of my iron deficiency. They're up and down because we don't get much sun. So, like this last week, we didn't have sun for 7 days here, and my levels was a little normal. They was average or whatever, but I made sure I took my stuff, my vitamins, everything else to boost my immune system. And that's another thing I want to speak on too. Just because somebody's not clinically depressed, which means they're prescribed medicine by a doctor, doesn't mean that we don't all have at one point in time or another some kind of mental illness. I believe that we all have a mental illness. Just because we're not talking about it, we all do. We walk around here every day in this life, and I want to say normal, but we all are normal. Whether you have, I know people, personal family members that have bipolar, that have depression, and have this clinically, medicated. But I don't look at them separately as me, as I'm going through something. I don't look at them as they just went the next step, because there's maybe, you never know their story, there's maybe more extensive than mine was at one point, or is at one point, that they needed medication because of certain things. Everybody is different. I just want to, first of all, say, use this platform. If anybody listening, let's take the blinders off of what it's supposed to look like. We're going to talk about Twitch. Twitch in itself, he was just a happy person, as we've seen on the outside. It's people that probably did know him, but it's probably the same people that knew him. Happy, loving. He was a husband, and he had 3 kids. And every time we seen him, he was a dancer, choreographer, So every time we see him on TV, he was always happy. He was always the happy-go-lucky. But he committed suicide. We don't know the backstory. We don't know really why he did it. But I want to say, if we take the blinders off and stop expecting that depression or suicide has a certain look, that it's supposed to look a certain way, we can understand our responsibilities as to our friends, our family members, of what we can do and need to do. Because I feel like it's a need to prevent it happening to one of us, our family members, our friends, because suicide is the most. This suicide took me. This death of his suicide took me to a whole nother level. It really made me feel like it was somebody personal to me, because I took it as me. And we have this thing, everybody went around about the strong friend, the strong friend, the strong friend. And I took it as me, because I am the strong friend to all my friends. I am the one. Of course I am. I do this. I've been doing this, like I told you guys before. I've been in this platform since I was young. So just because it wasn't a podcast or me, I've always been the one that people call for advice. I've always been the one that people call to vent to, everything. So what I'm saying is, because the strong friend, the person that you see is happy, the one that's always giving advice, let's not put these blinders on that we think that they're okay, or because strong friend, I don't say the weak friend, the whoever you want to call it, whatever your name for the person that's dealing with whatever they're dealing with. If we all look at suicide and depression as one thing, as 2 separate things, but at the same time, all together, we're pointing to someone, we're checking in on people. And yeah, sometimes it can be irritating. But I think my personal people know, and I would say my spiritual father mostly. He knows when I'm in my state of sadness or whatever. To my other friends and to my family members, they might not see it because I am the strong one. I'm the one that can endure everything. I'm the one that can go through everything in my life. And if you know my past and everything else, I'm the one that I will punch through a wall to keep on going, but you would never see the sadness. So that brings me to the story that I have to tell. My personal friends and family knows my story, but I never really told my suicide story on this platform. I mentioned it, but I never really told it. Okay, so it had to be 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. And my son has to be between 4 going on 5. And I literally, yes, he was 4 going on 5 because I literally just started school. And I enrolled in college because I had a friend, rest in peace to her name, her she was my best friend. We became best friends really quickly. Her name was Kim. And if you get my book, my second book, it talks about it. And at the time that she came into my life, I knew hindsight that God sent her into my life at the moment that He sent her. But because this was a really bad time, I was battling with me not knowing who I was. I was at that time, currently at that time, I was living with my mom. And me and my mother didn't have a good relationship at that time. And I had my son. And what was definitely happening with me mentally, if I was to take you back and think about it, it was more of me feeling like I was worthless. I wasn't valuable to anyone that was around me. At that time, I worked, and I think I was working 2 jobs, 2 part-time jobs, whatever. Can't really remember. But what ended up happening, no, because I didn't work a job. I ended up, not, I wasn't working at that time. So what ended up happening, I was living at my mom's house, and every day I would get up. My son was in daycare, so he had to be at school at the earliest 6 o'clock. I literally get up when he get ready, make him breakfast. My son loved pancakes, so that was his thing. So I make him pancakes, head off to his school. His school was like 30 minutes from my mom's house. Drive him all the way to school every day and drive back home and get into bed. He didn't have to be picked up from school until 6 o'clock. I literally wouldn't get out the bed from the time I'm driving him back, getting home. Say I got home at 7. I'll get in the bed and won't wake up until 5. Literally, every day. I remember this consecutively. I can't remember how long it was, but I promise you, it was like the reason why I ended up enrolling in college, because I felt like my life was going nowhere. And I was talking to my friend Kim at that time, and she was telling me, if you want to go out to school, and I didn't know nothing about financial aid, and I felt like, I was an adult. I'm past the age of 25, and I need to do something with my life, and I feel like I was a bum, and I ended up enrolling back into school. And I ended up going into Trinity International University, which was kind of a Christian college at that time. It still is. It's a Christian college, but I ended up going into enroll to get a nonprofit degree and a bachelor's degree or whatever I did. So I enrolled in school, and even though I enrolled in school, it was still something I felt like was missing. And so me enrolling in school, and at that time feeling like nobody loved me. And I knew that my son, it was the only person that I knew technically loved me because I was his mom, but he was the fulfillment of why I was living every day. So one day I came home and I said, and it was the depression building up. So one day I came home and I said, I think I'm going to kill myself. I never told anybody. So I go and write a letter. And I write a letter to my son, but I also wrote to my son's father about taking care of him and why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I love my son, and I wrote it in detail. I remember. And at this time, I don't think we had phones, but I don't think I wrote in no notes. I think I just wrote in them a journal. But at that time, I remember feeling like I never told anybody how, even when I told the story, how I was going to do it. Now, we all heard about different types of suicide and how you kill yourself. And I didn't have a gun. I didn't own a gun. Nothing like that. My way of committing suicide was I had contemplated on two things: slit my wrist, because I've always heard that that's the quickest way, or taking pills, a lot of pills. So regardless of what way I was going to do it, I knew I was going to do it. Okay, so I was still trying to be functional. So I'm in class, and I promise you, this probably like the second or third week of class after I enrolled in school. This wasn't even like I wasn't in school that long. And I go to class that night because I was going to school at night. And I go to class that night, and I said to myself, tomorrow I'm going to do it. And this has to be a Monday class. I can remember like really good details only because I remember where I was at, what my mindset was at. And I said, tomorrow I'm going to do it. Now, after I got the letter, I wrote the letter. The letter is written. Didn't give it to anybody. I kept it until I wanted somebody to find me, technically. Whoever I was at, I was going to have somebody find me. And at that time, I was living in my mom's house. So, of course, it probably was going to be in my mom's house, which is the most selfish thing ever. But at that time, you're not thinking right. You're not thinking correctly. So, you're not thinking why you want to do it at that point and let somebody find you. All I know is I was bleeding out mentally and physically, and I needed help. And I didn't know how to ask people for help. I felt like I was more of a burden on people than asking for people help. And that's why I wanted to bring up the strong friends and everything else, because most strong people don't ask for help. They're not going to ask for help. They're not going to ask for the advice. They're not going to call you, and they're not going to say, I need help. I'm thinking about suicide. I'm mentally breaking down. They're not. They're going to hide it. They're going to smile. They're going to laugh. They're going to be there for you. They're going to give you all the advice. They're going to do the right things, but they don't take their own advice. I promise you. It happens. Okay? So, back to my story. I went to class that day, that night. And as she's talking, and I think we was talking about, this class was talking about time management. And I'm at the front of the class because I'm right by the front door of the class. And as she's talking, and I'm writing, and I'm looking down and I'm writing, and she's telling us to do something, and she's talking about time management. She abruptly stopped the professor, because I keep on saying the professor. Her name is Deborah, Sister Deborah. She goes to New Life. She went to New Life at that time. That was my church, but I didn't know that. Okay, so. And at that time, she's talking. She abruptly stops, and she closes her eyes. She opens her eyes, and she just straight looks at me like she could look through my soul. And she said, "Let me talk to you for a minute." I said, and she stops in class looking, and we all looking, and I'm just like, okay. So, I go in the hallway with her. And she grabs my hands, and she says to me, "It's not worth it." And start telling me what God told her. Now, I promise you, clear as day, God was telling her every single thing that I said that I was gonna do, not in the in a technical way of the suicide, but that I was gonna commit suicide. God was telling her everything that I said I was feeling about why I wanted to commit suicide, and she was repeating it back to me. And of course, somebody repeating something back to you that you never told anybody, you just scared. Like, you're scared at the same time. And this is my first time encountering, I knew God, and I know God speaks through people, but encountering that myself and saying, okay, this is real. And at the epitome of breaking down in her arms, falling to the floor, crying, and having that breakthrough moment. I promise you, to this day, I will never forget this story because it was the moment I knew that God was speaking to me and I had more to do in my life than what I was doing then. That was the moment that I knew that my life was so much worth than what I was feeling of a temporary moment. A lot of times we take temporary feelings and we make them permanent decisions because of what we're going through and what we feel. Depression is real. Suicide thoughts and suicide is real. I want us to stop thinking that because someone is not on medication, and everyone doesn't need medication. To this day, I've never taken medication for any of my sadness, depression. That is not as just important or real. Excuse me. As someone that has taken medication. Our young adults, teenagers, deal with depression every day. It's becoming stronger and stronger. It's not just in adults. I need us to be aware that we have teens in our own homes walking around battling things of their mind. And I wanted to talk about two, since we're going into it. When we have a battle of the mind, depression is just not the mind. It could be physical. It's physical, it's emotional, it's everything. But it starts with the mind. Everything that we feel, think about our own selves, it starts with the mind. It starts with, it could be something that someone said to us and we encountered it and we let it absorb in us as a negative. Or what we think about ourselves that most people didn't think. I promise you, to this day, from starting at school, and I know that was about God, because that me being at school, I love school. If nobody knows, I would be a professional student if I could. If I had the money, I would. I just love learning. I love being in the surrounding, educating myself more and everything else. But starting at school opened up a whole nother door of me to learn who I was as a woman, as a mother at that time, and also in God. It helped me to realize that I had more of a life to live than what I thought about. I started journaling more. I started writing more. At that time, I never knew what I was going to be doing right now to this day. And things, if I could tell you that God brought things to my fruition that I didn't even see. He manifested things in my life that I prayed about, that he opened up more doors that I thought that was more deeper than what I was actually going to do. When I say depression is real and you check on your strong friends, when I say check, that means get ready and be ready to answer those deep questions. If you're going to ask, are you okay? Are you really prepared for that person, that strong friend, the person that you know that gives all the advice to say, no, I'm not? Are you really prepared to sometimes just allow them to vent and not give your ideas or your own opinions or thoughts? Are you prepared to say, not just it's going to be okay, but I'm here if you need me? A lot of times we need to stop thinking that just saying it's going to be okay, or you're stronger than this, or you've been through this, you can get through it. That helps. That does not help. That does not relieve someone of their feelings and their frustration and their depression and their sadness. Sometimes when I had certain depression, and I could talk about even this year, I was depressed a couple of times up and down this year that you guys probably wouldn't even know. I got on this podcast still every week. But there was a couple of times I was depressed where I felt like it's going to take me out. No, it didn't lead me to be suicidal. So that's why I want to let people know that just because you're depressed don't mean you're suicidal. But it didn't lead me to be suicidal, but it did. The depression was real. It was a feeling that I was having, that I was feeling, that it kept me to this point where, oh, I don't know how this is going to go on. I don't know what I'm going to do about this situation. And I promise you, them times when people called, people never knew. People, I remember personally one time I was at my lowest this year, and nobody knew but my spiritual father, because that's my homie. I tell him everything. And one day I kept getting, I must have got 3-4 phone calls in a row. Now, if you know me, I'm going to answer my phone for anybody, everybody. That's just who I am. And at these times, I'm knowing these people are in need, because these certain people calling. So I'm like, okay, they need some advice, or they want to tell me an update of something they're going through, or such. And I literally, promise you, picked up the phone each and every time. So after the 4th phone call, I said, oh, I can't take it no more. Oh my God. It was like too much. But the praise report to that was, as I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, and I'm like, why they keep on calling me? I'm going through my own stuff. It was at that moment that God told me, you are prepared for this. You are ready for this. And if you just if you're focusing on the negative, look how many lives that you're changing. And it's not me, it's the Holy Spirit, because I take no credit for what God is doing in my life. That He uses me to minister, to talk to help, to support friends and family that call me. It was at that moment that I had to remember that I'm here for a purpose. I'm here for a reason. My friends never knew. They never knew. Because I had to put that to the side and say, I couldn't be on this platform. I can't be a coach that I've been doing this for over a year now to say, I don't want to deal with other people and their problems because I'm going through stuff. We all are going through something. And I don't take light about anything that everybody's going through. But if you are in that support space, that advice space, that therapist, counseling, whatever you want to call it, space, you do have to put your stuff to the side. But on the other end, on the back end, I talked about, and I'll talk about, I had to take the time out after that phone call to reground me and talk to the Lord and rebuild me up, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And I had the little to give. The little I gave to those 4 phone calls, I gave it. But I promise you, it felt like I ran a whole marathon after those 4 phone calls. I was pooped. I was blue. But my point in saying that is, I had to realize this is where God placed me. And if I give up on what I'm doing, thinking, because whatever I'm going through at that time is more important than changing and helping somebody see who I am in Christ. And they calling me, not because I'm so much better than anyone else, but because they see the value I have that God placed in me to pour into their lives. I wouldn't give it up for anything in this world. I'm glad God honestly takes me through these periods where He makes me recognize and realize who I am in Him, and to continue on this journey. Even with 2023 coming up, I'm so excited about 2023 because God has been showing me things that's about to happen for me, things that's going to happen for around me, because it's not just about me. It's about what I'm about to bring in 2023. 2023 is about manifestation, but it's me, a lot of things, helping other people, bringing other people up, helping other people with their businesses. So it's a lot of other things. But I could say on this platform right now that I'm so happy that what I do helps other people to first come to Christ, because that's the end of it all, change their lives, have a new outlook, have a breakthrough on their own life, and just become better people. We're elevating to become better people. We're elevating to become better at everything that we say and that we do. And when we talk about the battle of the mind, depression looks differently in everyone. So smiling and socializing doesn't mean that someone is not depressed. Let's take the blinders off of our eyes of what depression and suicide looks like. This is not probably going to be the last time or the first time that I or you go through something personal that we need to help someone else regardless of what we're going through. Or me being that strong one and pushing myself through with the Lord. Some people are not strong enough to push themselves through. Always remember that there is something and someone that is probably fighting a battle that is stronger than yours, and that you might just be the light for someone's depression, suicide, sadness. It don't even have to go to the deep depression. Just asking someone how they doing every day and being ready for that answer. And letting the Holy Spirit and God use you to what to say. Or if it's a moment to be silent. Let's just stop with what we think it looks like. That is the episode for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed this whole year. I thank you guys for always listening to me. I got some new exciting things happening for next year. You guys are amazing. The ones that continually support and listen to me. I do this because God placed it upon my heart to do it. To use this platform to help other people have breakthroughs and become aware. I will see you guys next year. Yay! And we are out. I love you. Until next time. Bye. Thanks for listening in on today's show. You can find me online at RebaBell.com to order any of my products or my books. Or you can find me at Instagram at BreakthroughCoach_Reba Arve. Thank you again and see you next week.